Reza, Pak Prof. Reza. Setelah itu, Bapak Ibu bisa memberikan komentar atau memberikan pertanyaan. Hari ini sampai jam berapa, Prof? Sama kah?
2 jam, Mister.
Oh, oke. Baik. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're gonna start this guest lecture on digital method for mapping Islamic discourse on social media. Let's start by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome the Professor Reza guest lecture on digital method for mapping Islamic discourse on social media. Let's start by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oh yes. Okay, well, it's clear. Without further ado, let's welcome the Professor Reza guest lecture.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Oh, here is morning, but yeah, for your time it's still afternoon.
Yeah.
First, thanks again for having me here today. It's truly an honor to be speaking with you once again. I really enjoyed the conversation we had last week and hopefully today and inshallah next week. I promised last week, today I'm going to share with you another research project that is as part of the intersection of several fields that I'm quite deeply passionate about. First and foremost, Islamic studies, environmental discourse, sustainability, and lately with the whole topic of AI and big data, I shifted towards digital methods. So I have my ethnographic baggage with me, but at the same time, I'm exploring the digital aspect of anthropological research. So we'll be exploring how green Islam or in Islamic environmentalism is being discussed, debated, and of course shaped on Indonesian social media, specifically on YouTube and TikTok. And I'm not very expert in Indonesia, so what I'm saying is from what data says and my interpretation. So I would be very happy to have your feedback at any time. So please jump in whenever you feel comfortable. So I hope this presentation not only share my findings, but also spark some ideas about your own research project and hopefully in terms of methodology as well as the topic. So this is a roadmap, so to speak, for today's talk. We begin with the introduction that situates green Islam within Indonesian context and explains why social media matters for studying contemporary religious discourse. We maybe briefly tap into digital religion. Then we'll move into the theoretical framework and methodology that is important because I want you to understand not just what I found, but also how I found what I found. So you can potentially apply similar approaches for your own research projects. And of course, the heart of the presentation, I'll talk about the findings from YouTube and TikTok. You'll see these platforms produce quite different pictures of what green Islam actually looks like on digital sphere. And then we interpret and compare these findings, these two platforms, and of course we conclude and have a discussion. And I'm really looking forward to your your reflection and your question, and hopefully we have a lively conversation. So we all know that every good research project starts with a very clear-cut question or series of questions. Here are what I had in my mind. So first I asked, how is green Islam discussed on Indonesian social media? This seems actually simple, but it's actually quite complex. We are not just talking about whether it is discussed. We assume actually it does has leave traces on social media, but we ask how, what languages is used, what forms are applied, what arguments are made around Green Islam on social media. Second, what topics dominate environmental Islamic discourse online? Is it about climate change, waste management, forest conservation, or something actually very different entirely? Then also asked about who are the key actors behind these conversations, who are the conversation makers, so to speak. Are they religious scholars, institutions like Natatul Ulama or Muhammadiyah, or individual influencers, or maybe even commercial entities? Who are actually behind these, environmental narratives through the lens of religion and Islam, of course? Fourth, I ask, how do different platforms shape Green Islam debates? So I wanted to just not only who is talking and how is talking, but also we have different platforms. So this is also tapping to the platform studies question. We know that TikTok and YouTube have very different affordances. So how does this affect the kind of Green Islam content that we actually see and gets produced within or on these platforms? And of course, finally, what communities form around environmental Islamic content? Are there distinct networks, or is it a fragmented landscape? So with these questions in mind, I go a little bit deeper into why actually we need to care even about Green Islam. So let's give you several reasons why actually Green Islam matters, and of course in Indonesian context. Indonesia faces severe environmental challenges. We have deforestation, we have plastic pollution, we have air quality issues in major cities, coastal erosion, and increasing vulnerability to climate change impacts. And we all know about the whole new capital is being built. These are not abstract problems, they affect real communities, often at a massive scale, and of course those most vulnerable people. At the same time, Indonesia, again, it's a cliche thing, but again, quite important for us, homes and houses the world's largest Muslim population. How these population understand and respond to environmental crisis matters enormously, both for Indonesia and also, of course, for global environmental efforts. And of course, we know from decades of research that religion shapes environmental attitude and behaviors significantly. So understanding how Islam and environmentalism interact in Indonesia is crucial for anyone interested in environmental communication, policy, and of course, activism. But here's what's changed. Increasingly, religious knowledge is transmitted not through traditional institutions alone, but through social media that we talk about digital religion. So understanding online discourse reveals emerging movement that might not yet be visible in formal institutional settings. And of course, for those of you, audience interested in different methodology and different methods, this project offers a model for how we might do digital anthropology of Islam, combining computational methods with interpretive analysis. So, of course, elephant in the room. What is Green Islam? What do I actually mean by Green Islam? Green Islam, for me, refers to Islamic environmentalism. So approaches to ecology and environmental ethics that are grounded in Quranic sources, Hadith, Sunnah, and Islamic theological tradition. As a scholarly concept, it emerged around 1960s through 1980s with thinkers like Sayyid Hussein Nas, writing about the spiritual crisis, underlying the environmental crisis, and of course some scholars like Ibrahim Ozdemir developing systematic Islamic environmental ethics. What's distinctive about Green Islam is that it positions environmental care not as something optional or culturally Western. It's actually a religious obligation. It's a fariza that Muslims are bound to actually fulfill. This framing is very important because it challenges what we might call the Western secular monopoly on environmentalism. It says you don't have to become secular to care about the environment. In fact, your Islamic faith actually demands you to care about environment. Green Islam connects local ecological practices, things communities have done for generations, to broader Islamic ethical frameworks. And it has grown into global movement with both institutional dimensions like Islamic environmental declaration and, of course, grassroots activism from bottom-up initiatives. So again, Green Islam has traces through Quran, Sunnah, Hadith. But let's delve a little bit deeper into the theological foundation of Green Islam. So first and foremost, we have Khalifa. So perhaps the most cited concept for Green Islam, and of course you all know that positions, Khalifa concept positions humans, us as stewards or trustees of the earth. So we are not owners of creation, we are caretakers, all appointed by Allah. The other concept is amana. So that reinforces that creation is a divine trust. We will be held accountable for how we treat what has been entrusted to us. The other one is Tawheed. So the unity of Allah and God has ecological implication. The unity of the Creator is reflected in the unity and interconnectedness of creation. Harming one part of the ecosystem could be interpreted as harming the whole system, the whole creation. The other one is Mizan, or balance. So the Quran speaks of Allah creating everything in balance, and humans are warned not to transgress this balance. The other part is fitra, so the natural harmony between humans and environments. That care for nature is part of the original, actually, disposition. So these concepts are, of course, supported numerously through the Quranic verse and Hadith and Sunnah. Of course, the Prophet spoke about the rewards of planting trees, the prohibition of wasting water, even by following the river, and of course the protection of animals. Why do we have this line here? Is it from me, this line? No, anyhow, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit here. So now let's talk about Green Islam in Indonesia. So how does this play out significantly in Indonesia? So the country has a long history of Islamic environmental ethics, often embedded in local traditions. But in recent decades, we've seen more systematic institutional engagement. Nadatul Ulama, for example, has developed an environmental jurisprudence, attempting to provide Islamic legal frameworks for environmental issues. Muhammadiyah has its own environmental program and has issued fatwas on environmental protection. And of course, one of the most famous examples is eco-Pesantren movement that has begun around early 2000s. Is particularly interesting. These are Islamic boarding schools that integrate environmental education and sustainable practices into their curriculum and daily life. And the MUI, the Majlis Ulama Indonesia, has also issued fatwas on environmental protection and conservation. And of course, increasingly we see in youth-led Islamic environmental activism often organized through social media. However, I should note that, and this connects to the current debate, there are also tensions. You can see this, a screenshot on the right that have some questions around organization like NU that can maintain their Green Islam credentials while also engaging in activities like mining. So these are there's quite a lively and heated debates around Green Islam that been shaped, but no one contradicts that Green Islam is a very important concept that has emerged specifically in Indonesia. Then let's move on to social media. So why study Green Islam through social media rather than, say, good old-fashioned ethnographic investigation, interviewing religious leaders or attempting mosque ceremonies and rituals? Well, I have several arguments for this. First, the sheer scale. Indonesia has over 190 million social media users, sorry. This is a very huge portion of the population, especially younger generation, encounter religious content. Second, religion and religious authorities increasingly contested and distributed online. The ulama no longer have the monopoly of religious interpretation, I would argue. Anyone with a smartphone can produce and share religious content. Third, and it's very crucial for understanding the data, we'll see later, platform algorithms shape what religious content circulates. What becomes visible isn't just what's produced, it's what platform amplifies or how platform is feeding you with the content that you would like to see. Fourth, COVID-19 massively accelerated digital religious engagement. Practices that might have taken years to develop happen actually in months because we've been forced to think differently. Fifth, social media enables grassroots and bottom-up initiatives to be heard, and the grassroots voices to be heard alongside institutional ones. A young activist can potentially reach a massive number of people as actually an established organization can do. And of course, for researchers like us, social media captures everyday religious discourse, not just what elites and institutions say, but what ordinary Muslims are discussing, sharing, and debating. So, yes, Green Islam, yes, social media, yes, digital Islam, but why these platforms? That's a very legit question. So, YouTube offers long formats of videos. So it has significant institutional presence. Organizations have official channels. It tends towards educational and ceremonial content. TikTok, on the other hand, is opposite in many ways. Short forms appealing to younger demographics with viral potential that can make content spread unpredictably. But both platforms are video-based, which is very video-based, which is very important. Video enables multimodal religious communication. You see the speaker, you hear the voice, you might see text and overlays, background imagery, music. This is much richer than just text alone, like for example, Twitter, nowadays X. The difference, of course, affordances of this platform produces genuinely very different types of discourse. Let's say a 60-second TikTok and a 45-minute YouTube lecture are not just different in length, they different actually genres. By looking at both platforms, we get a more complete picture of the spectrum of Green Islam engagement, from the institutional and educational to a popular and everyday aspect. And of course, frankly, YouTube and TikTok are understudied compared to, let's say, Facebook and Twitter. So that's the gap in our knowledge that this, I hope I try to, feel or maybe shed some light upon. So a little bit of introduction so far. Now let's move on to a little bit of theory. So again, digital religion. Digital religion studies asks how platforms mediate religious practices. Religion isn't just represented online, it is transformed by digital environments. Related to that, we have mediatization theory, which suggests that media logic increasingly shapes religious expression. Content is created with platform dynamics in mind, what will get views and what will be shared. So as a content creator, you think about my audience. If I present my talk in different ways, it becomes more viral and hence more views, more shares, and more revenue for me, for example, if it's financially motivated. We also have platform studies that focuses on how technical affordances, and I mean like algorithms, interface design, content policies, all of these influence what content gets produced and circulated. We have public sphere theory, which helps us think about online spaces as arenas for debate. Who gets to participate? Whose voices are amplified or even silenced? Religious authority scholarship examines how digital environments reshape Islamic leadership. Who counts as an authority online? Very interesting question, and later we see what's happening on different platforms. So what I'm doing methodologically is combining computational methods. I show you topic modeling, network analysis with anthropological interpretation, because I deeply believe, and I'm sure all of you also agree with me, that numbers alone don't tell us what things mean. We need to be, able to interpret the numbers. This is the methodology. I developed a dictionary or the corpus of 184 Green Islam queries or terms of words in both Indonesian and English languages. These include terms like eco-Islam, Islam hijau, eco-pesantren, green jihad, and many, many others. And now we have this, dictionary. I use for YouTube. I use official API to collect data, and I collected YouTube videos from the beginning up until end of 2023. For TikTok, I did the same. I used official research API and collected data from 2020 up to end of 2023. So once I had the raw data, I used topic modeling, a natural language processing technique to identify thematic clusters. What topics appear together? What do they change over time? I also use network analysis to map community structures and relationship, who mentions whom and what entities co-occur. Importantly, this was iterative. So you need to constantly go back and forth between your theory, between your finding, and your interpretation. So I refined my corpus cleaned irrelevant results and validate the computational outputs with qualitative readings of actual content. So this is what I found. So let's go through first YouTube and the data collection process. As I said, starting with 184 research terms, I pulled approximately 137,000 videos. That's actually quite a lot, but again, there is a substantial amount of noise in the data, and you need to, remove the noise to get the signal, so to speak. So the lots of duplicates I needed to remove, and after removing those, because if you have 180 terms, you're probably going to end up the same video several times. So duplicates you remove to come up with the unique videos. Already half of your the corpus is gone. And then I filtered for videos that explicitly contained Green Islam terms in the titles or in the description. And then that significantly shrank the data, the corpus, into 2,100 Green Islam videos. But then I was interested in those videos that are explicitly in Indonesian language. Then you can see almost 700 videos. So this filtering process is very crucial and involves tough decisions that shape your findings. By requiring explicit Green Islam terms, I'm very much sure I lost and I missed some videos, because if there's a new term or social media speaks different terminology, I did not have my data space. Basically, I missed that. But then still, it gave me decent corpus with about 700 videos, and then you transcribe the video text, and then you can run the analysis on that. First, the easiest one is just temporal time series. Let's look at these now when the content was actually posted. The top graph, shows the posting patterns by month. You can see it's quite sparse before 2020, then picks up significantly. There are notable spikes. I need to investigate what events or context actually drove those spikes. The bottom, the same, but in year. So contents was minimal, before 2012, and then up to 2018. Then we see significant jump in 2020, and of course, COVID was a huge influencer on religious activities, and then of course continues from 2022 till the end of the corpus 2023. But these graphs tells us that Green Islam as an explicit discourse on Indonesian YouTube is actually relatively recent. The infrastructure and vocabulary existed earlier, but the volume of content is a post-2020s phenomenon. This matters for interpretation. We are looking at an emerging discourse, not at a mature one. Now let's see what we found a little bit more deeper into. So let's talk about the outreach of those content. So this scatter plot shows view count on the x-axis and likes count on the y-axis, and the size of the bubble represents the comment count. A few observations. Most Green Islam content has relatively modest reach. So basically, this part is just the maximum, let's say, outputs for outreach for many of the Green Islam videos. But of course, we have several outliers. The most viewed video with the highest engagement is from Pascasarjana, that just a short film about the festival activity around 2020. Another popular one is from Umi Rahmi, a lifestyle content creator visiting a wooden house in Bandung. Of course, again, content about Darus Sunnah gets moderate views, but with engagement. What this tells us is that Green Islam on YouTube is actually niche discourse. Again, is an emerging phenomenon, doesn't get much views or reach. Outreach is limited, which means it's a relatively niche discourse. It's not reaching mass audience yet. The content that goes viral it often combines Green Islam with other appeals like lifestyle, celebrity, and environments. So that's a way of boosting your viewership, for example. So let's talk about who actually is behind the channels. So this tree map shows the top 20 channels by volume of Green Islam content. The two channels, of course, stand out. Again, official and JPIC Indonesia. Again, Abdullah Gimnaster, sorry, is one of Indonesia's, of course, we all know that, most famous preachers. His content connects Green Islam themes, as far as I could delve into his Green Islam videos with lifestyle and personal development. JPEG OFM Indonesia is actually quite interesting. As far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's justice, peace, and integrity of the creation commission of a Franciscan order of Indonesia. So it's actually how Catholic environmental content appearing in search for Islamic environmental terms is fascinating, that probably they shared similar terminology and hashtag, for example, for their content. Other notable channels include Darut Tawheed, or of course, as far as I know, is part of Akim's organization, Green Waqf, official, and various Pascasarjana channels. What we are seeing is a mix of celebrity preachers, institutional channels, and educational content producers that basically produce the majority of content around Green Islam. Let's delve a little bit deeper into Agim's topics and what he actually talked about. So this stack bar chart shows the topics in his Green Islam videos over time. And of course, a video can have several topics. What's striking is that explicit environmental content is actually quite limited in his videos. The dominant topics are Islamic ethics and morals, Islamic prayer and remembrance, and Islamic boarding schools, Pascasarjana. There's some health and family care content and occasional traditional medicine and ceremonies. What this tells us is that when Agim talks about Green Islam, he's primarily not talking about change or deforestation. He's embedding these environmental themes within broader Islamic ethics and lifestyle content. That is basically what we talked about, the different aspects of Green Islam from Quran, Sunnah, and Hadith. Basically, we see that the way that Agim promotes or talks about Green Islam. This is important finding. So Green Islam discourse isn't separate from other Islamic discourse. As we said before, it is integrated into existing framework of Islamic ethics and practice. And now, if we just tap into all the topics that we see in this about 667 YouTube videos, we have about 30 distinct topics which tell us how diverse actually content is on YouTube videos. So some observation we could see that Pesantren is constantly prominent. Eco-Pesantren connection is strong. Islamic ethics and moral forms study in baseline. We have environmental topics like forest and land management, climate change and impacts, environmental pollution and conservation, waste management and recycling are also present. We also see Islamic finance and empowerment connecting to green Waqf discussion and Islamic education system. Of course, very interesting way. We also see topics like mining and resource extraction appear within the data set, reflecting the debates around resource extraction and Islamic ethics. The diversity is quite interesting and important because green Islam isn't one thing, as we saw before, and the whole literature review is a contested space where multiple concerns actually interact. We can also put these topics into conversation to see which topics appear within a single YouTube video to see which topics are linked. So this network visualization shows how topics relate to each other, which topics tend to appear together in the same video. So we see, for example, Islamics and trade connect to politics and social justice, school life and activism, forest and land management. All of these suggest discussions linking economic development, justice, and environmental issues. We also see climate change and impact connects to several topics: Islamic education system, mining resource extraction, again, debates around development and environment. We also have Islamic finance and endowments, traditional medicine ceremonies, Japanese Islamic culture. It's very interesting that these channels link different topics in a wide variety and very creative ways to embed Green Islam with local culture and Islamic ethics and practices. And of course, biggest major organization also present within our data. We see that network shows entities with more than 5 connections. So, for example, if in a sentence, Muhammadiyya and one of those 184 Green Islam terminology appear within a video more than 5 times, we see it here. And of course, the node size indicate how many connections each term has. We see Muhammadiyya is most prominent organization with a strong connection with eco-jihad and eco-theology and eco-pesantren. Eco-jihad is another highly connected concept linking to mostly Muhammadiyya. Of course, in the right we have green Waqf and Islamic green finance, suggesting a distinct sub-discourse around sustainable Islamic finance. Interestingly and surprisingly, I didn't see it much in my data set. That appears that Muhammadi is actually quite active, maybe Green Islam on YouTube, for example. But it is surprising that NU's significant offline environmental work and their development of ideas around Green Islam, it doesn't show in the data set. Maybe the queries was wrong, or some other, or maybe they have other channels to spread the ideas around Green Islam, or maybe they don't explicitly talk about Green Islam. They have their own terminology around Green Islam. And of course, interesting that the digital visibility doesn't necessarily reflect institutional activity. So they are active, but then the digital fingerprint or footprints is limited, or they use different terminology, for example. And the other one is also we talk about geographies that tend to come with green Islam, because geography matters too. Which places appear in green Islam and YouTube content? Of course, Indonesia. We talk about Indonesia, obviously, but also this pillars of international connection. We have Netherlands, Malaysia, Morocco, Australia, Turkey, Sweden, Scandinavia, China, US. It's fascinating how green Islam on Indonesian YouTube videos are linked to many other geographies and countries. This tells us that Indonesian green Islam discourse is not an isolated niche. It is connected to global conversations and international Islamic environmental movements. And of course, within Indonesia, eco-pesantren is highly connected with multiple locations. We have Bandung, we have Java, we have US, we have Netherlands. These are the places where eco-pesantren are actually discussed, fascinatingly. We have Green Waktu, also connected to places like Bali, Jakarta, and Bogota. We have Green Mosque, for example, related to China, Bursa, and Turkey. So all referencing international Green Mosque initiatives and activities. So this is what we've got very briefly on YouTube, but let's summarize what we've from on that platform. You see that institutional actors dominate content production. This is, of course, not surprising. YouTube favors organizations with resources to produce consistent quality content. And remember, a typical YouTube video is just lengthy, just minutes, rather than TikTok is just maybe much short, a couple of seconds, a minute maximum, for example. We see, of course, eco-pesantren emerges as a central organizing concept for Indonesian green Islam. More than abstract theology, it's a practical institution of the eco-pesantren that anchors the discourse. We also see the strong connection between Islamic finance, particularly Waktu, and ecology. Green Waktu is a significant sub-discourse, as we saw it. Next, we have content peaks around environmental events and Islamic holidays, suggesting strategic timings and content. We have limited viral reach, again, for Green Islam YouTube video, which suggests that, again, one more time, is a niche audience and niche discourse on YouTube. Green Islam isn't mainstream on Indonesian YouTube, maybe later, but at the my data shows that outreach is limited. Last but not least, and topics blend the traditional Islamic ethics and local culture with contemporary Islam environmental concerns. It's not purely environmental content. That is exactly how Green Islam has been depicted or debated, embedded within already Islamic practices, morality, ethics, and local cultural practices. So that is the YouTube, and then we move on to TikTok. So basically what I did for YouTube, the corpus of 184 Green Islam terminology, I did the very same with TikTok. And I ended up with all 1,300 TikTok videos from January 2020 up to December 2023. And again, we have duplicates, we have irrelevant videos. When we remove the noise and duplicates to reach the signal, we have a little bit more than 500 videos. Decent, much smaller than YouTube, but again, yeah, TikTok is shorter format, means that number aren't directly comparable. And the filtering of, as I said, is a similar process. We need to remove the duplicates and think about the terminology that explicitly mentioned within the video TikTok description. Similar to YouTube, we have time series, a temporal analysis to see the trajectory of TikTok Green Islam content, which is actually very different from YouTube. If you look at the top, the monthly posting pattern, there is consistent growth from 2020 up to the end of 2023. And then by late 2023, we have more than 40 videos per month, which is amazing for a very early emerging phenomenon on social media. If you look at the yearly accumulation, it is increasing from 2020 till end of 2023. Is just basically every year more than the previous year. Still, end of the 2023, we have more than 300 YouTube videos. Basically, if you have almost more than 500 videos, you have 60% of your data coming from 2023. And I'm very much sure if I would have continued data collection from last year and this year, this number would have been much higher. And what about the outreach of the TikTok videos around Green Islam? Similar, we have video view count on x-axis and likes count on y-axis, and the bubble include talk about comments. Immediately, we see a higher number of outreach compared to YouTube. Several videos, exceed 100,000 views. Fascinating. And with one reaching nearly 250,000 views, which is fascinating. For example, what is happening. But engagement is also higher on TikTok. Many videos have 50 to 100 likes and comments. This suggests that Green Islam TikTok videos and content is reaching larger audience than YouTube content, despite being a smaller corpus here. So we can talk about, for example, how TikTok's algorithm can amplify content to wider audiences. However, we should be cautious about interpreting reach as impact. TikTok's quick scroll format means views don't necessarily translate to deep engagement with ideas. If we tap into the topics and what topics are being discussed or disseminated, we see this is something fascinating. Darut Tawheed and his Islamic housing project, eco-friendly Islamic housing development in Bandung, green residential amenities and location, and eco-Pascasarjana and environmental education part of the topics been mainly discussed on TikTok, which is interesting. We have 4 topics, 3 of them are about housing, and this dramatically different from YouTube. TikTok Green Islam Discourse is heavily, I would dare to say, oriented towards residential real estate developments, specifically developments that brand themselves as green and Islamic. The Bandung area appears particularly prominent, suggesting a concentration of such developments there. Islamic, eco-Pascasarjana is, of course, the bridge between these 2 platforms, so which also been discussed on YouTube. If you talk about social network that tap into the communities around green Islam on TikTok, we see something also interesting. We see several distinct clusters, each centered around the hub accounts. But what's notable is that these communities are relatively separated. There is limited cross-communication between clusters. So we do not see inter-community conversation. It seems that TikTok Green Islam is fragmented into distinct communities rather than forming a unified discourse. The labeled nodes are accounts with high in or out degree. So those are basically the users that either post a lot or about Green Islam or mention a lot within those Green Islam posts, TikTok videos. So basically, there are important key players within TikTok Green Islam, Indonesian content. So how can we interpret these findings? I would think, for example, that we see a bottom-up initiative. So everyday framing of Green Islam themes on TikTok. This is an institutional sermon content on TikTok. It's people sharing their daily lives, their homes, their communities. We see also housing and residential developments feature prominently. This is the dominant frame for Green Islam on TikTok. Fascinating what you see here. The other one is the commercial actors are appropriating Green Islam branding. Real estate developments are using Green Islam vocabulary to market properties. This raises question about the commercialization of religious discourse. Fourth, we have rapid growth trajectory of content creation around Green Islam, which suggests that it is actually becoming mainstream interest, not just a niche religious content as we saw it on YouTube. Fifth, despite the smaller corpus, so we have a little bit more than 500, the other one, it was around 700, that engagement rates actually quite higher on TikTok. So content reaching and resonating with audience. The other thing is communities are fragmented with limited intercommunication or cross-communication and within YouTube, within TikTok platform. So now let's compare these. So YouTube, we can argue that favors institutional, educational, lengthy sermon-style content. TikTok, on the other, favors practical, lifestyle, and commercial content. This means we are seeing different imagination of what Green Islam is. On YouTube, Green Islam means theological reflection, environmental fiqh, eco-pesantren education, discussions of Khalifa and Amana. On TikTok, we have Green Islam, which means eco-friendly housing, sustainable lifestyle products, green communities that you can actually buy into. YouTube provides theological depth. TikTok shows everyday application, but that everyday application can be also commercialized. Audience demographic shapes this. I would argue that generally speaking in a very broad term, YouTube skews towards older and more educated audience. TikTok skewed towards younger and lifestyle-oriented viewers. And of course, platform affordances constrain and enable different discourses. You can't do deep theological reflection in a 60-second YouTube video, TikTok videos, but you can show off your beautiful green home with Islamic environmentalism in 60 seconds. So yes, affordance matters. We can talk about organization. what role do major Islamic organizations play in this landscape? Again, the data shows Muhammadiyya channels seem to be highly visible on YouTube, and the digital strategy is clearly developed, or at least we see it very, explicitly on YouTube. But again, NU, I did not see the prominence, despite having a very significant offline environmental work. This is a gap, actually. They have, fiqhul bay'ah, an environmental program that I don't know, that is the question mark in my mind, that despite having these initiatives in offline sphere, it is not translated towards digital visibility. The other one is just, the Catholic organization, JPIC. It is surprising for me, and please, educate me more during the conversation, that how these, a Catholic organization is, showing up in my research that talk about Islamic environmentalism. And of course, again, individual, online feature nicely connects Green Islam with lifestyle content, and it nicely bridges what we discussed around theological foundation of Green Islam to personal development. And the key insight, I would say, that institutional capacity shapes digital presence significantly. Organizations with digital strategies and resources are bottom-up, and activities are more visible than YouTube, because the barrier is much lower on TikTok. You have a smartphone, you have a little bit of knowledge, you know how to make an attractive content, and actually you can post, and if you've done a good job, algorithm actually do the heavy lifting and amplify the viewership. The interesting is just geography. It's fascinating for me. So Bandung appears as a key hub for Green Islam content, especially on TikTok. This likely reflects both the concentration of eco-friendly housing development and the presence of Darut Tawheed in a games organization in that area. Java dominates overall, reflecting broader patterns of digital infrastructure and content production in Indonesia. Sumatra, I did not see that, sadly, but there are interesting international connections with visible in YouTube data. We have Netherlands, we have Malaysia, Morocco, United States, and Turkey. So we could say that Indonesian Green Islam is connected to global Islamic environmental networks and scholars who talk about Islamic environmentalism. And of course, one more time, eco-pesantren correlates with content production. Where there are eco-pesantren, there are content about it. We also see an urban focus in TikTok content. So housing development are urban areas versus rural setting featured in YouTube content. Pesantren sometimes has a little bit of a rural connotation, so to speak, or focus on rural areas. We have also Green Waqf, which connects specific places to environmental Islamic practices. That land has been dedicated as Waqf for environmental purposes. So these are the empirical finding and reflection. But again, what are the theoretical implications? What does this mean theoretically? You can argue that Green Islam is not monolithic. It is platform specific. Green Islam on YouTube is different from Green Islam on TikTok. This challenges any unitary understanding of concept. That Green Islam is one thing and is being represented on digital sphere in the same way. No, it is just different affordances, different audiences, different content produce different versions of Green Islam. Second, digital mediatization fragments and diversifies religious discourse. There isn't one Green Islam anymore. There are multiple Green Islam shaped by different digital environments. Conventional appropriation complicates religious environmental movements. When real estate developments use Green Islam to sell housing, what happens to the religious content of the concept? Fourth, we have institutional digital capacity shapes whose Islam gets visibility. Organizations that invest in digital presence become the face of Green Islam online on YouTube. Everyday religion differs significantly from institutional religion. What ordinary Muslims do with Green Islam concepts may be quite different from what ulama intend. And this is important for research. Platform studies is now essential for under contemporary Islam. You cannot understand contemporary religion and religions without understanding digital platforms. We have also some methodological reflection I would like to share. Computational methods reveal patterns invisible to ethnographic eyes. I could never have watched 681 YouTube videos or 521 TikTok videos, systematically track the topics over time and map the networks by hand. It's just impossible. The data is too big and time consuming. But term-based corpus construction has inherent biases. We have to be aware of it. By searching for specific terms, I'm only finding content that use those terms. Green Islam content that doesn't use this vocabulary is basically invisible to me. That is one of the limitations of the research. We need to reflect upon that. Topic modeling, of course, requires interpretive validation. The algorithms that I use find patterns, but I have to decide what those patterns mean. This is not automatic. It requires judgment and validation, triangulation. Network analysis shows a structure, but not meaning. I can see that communities exist, but I do not know what those communities think or feel about what they are sharing. We can talk about for example, sentiment analysis, because it's positive or negative or neutral, but for example, but how these people are sharing and getting connected to each other, it needs ethnographic interpretation. So the solution is combining big data with, as I call it, thick data. So use computational methods to find patterns and then do qualitative work, for example, watching videos, reading comments, interviewing curators to understand the meaning. This requires interdisciplinary collaboration. I'm working across computer sciences, media studies, and anthropology, because no single discipline can do all of this. You need to either work with different scholars, or you educate yourself across different interdisciplinary fields of scholarships. So what else I can do? So what are the future trajectories? What I miss is audience reception studies. We know that content is produced, but how the viewers interpret it. Do they buy the housing we saw on YouTube, on TikTok? Do they change the environmental behaviors after watching, for example, Akim's YouTube videos? Related to that, we have offline-online connection. How does digital discourse affect actual practices? Does watching eco-pesantren content lead people to support eco-pesantren? Does seeing green housing ads lead to purchase? Comparative platform analysis. We also need to look at, of course, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter/X to get a better picture. Longitudinal tracking, another way we can just as a follow. How do these debates evolve? If I repeat this analysis in 2 years, what will have changed? Again, a little bit of ethnography here. So interview research with content creators. Why do they produce this content? What are the intentions and the strategies? And of course, we can go even beyond Indonesia and talk about interurban cross-national comparison. How does Indonesian Green Islam compare to Malaysia, Turkey, Egypt, or European Muslim communities? Would be an interesting research, at least food for thought. And yeah, as a takeaway, I have a couple of comments, and hopefully we wrap up. So digital methods are applicable to diverse Islamic studies. Whatever you are studying, let's say Islamic law, economics, education, gender, there is probably, I'm sure, social media data related to these topics. Social media data is accessible and rich for analysis. You don't need expensive equipment or travel budgets. The data is already there. A little bit of computational analysis, or if you work in a group, you can basically collaborate with other scholars and researchers and do some interesting investigations. Combining computational tools with qualitative interpretation gives you much richer understanding of the data, because we just don't count things. We want to understand what those numbers mean. Consider platform-specific dynamics in your research design. Don't treat social media as one thing. As we just saw it, YouTube and TikTok produce different data. Again, if you're working in just big data, computational analysis, corpus construction, decision matters a lot. Again, if you work with dictionary of list of words, what are those words? How do you came up with those words? And of course, transparency is very important about your corpus creation, because again, if you make different decisions, we have different analysis, and logically we have different results. One more time, collaboration across disciplines. If you're not comfortable with Python or language programming languages or network analysis, it's fine. Basically, you come up with different collaborators. If you happen to know these programming or computation analysis, so basically you combine it with your anthropological perspective, then basically you have everything you wanted to do. That's basically it, and I have a couple of questions, and I hope just have a little bit of lively conversation here. So, how might Green Islam differ in your research if you're focusing on Green Islam? Yeah, I did not come up with Sumatra or Lampung, but what are the Green Islam there, for example, or how I can add something to my 184 list of words to extend my terminology. What are the Islamic topics we can use to use computational and social media methods to approach? What are you interested in studying that might be have some social media dimensions? Again, some other questions that I leave it here, and hopefully we have a lively conversation. So thank you very much. Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Wow.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Reza, for very interesting presentation about the mapping the Islamic, specifically the green Islam debates on Indonesian social media. I think our talk is very relevant today, especially because right now on social media we are facing a very quite hot debate on the environment because there is a big natural disaster, flood in Sumatra, and also we in Juresio Lampung, as the university under the Ministry of Religious Affairs, is also encouraged to promote the so-called eco-theology concept in our higher education system. So this is getting more relevant. I'm very interested, and Reza, let me give a little bit summary about what you have just talked to the audience in Bahasa Indonesia. Bapak Ibu, baru saja Profesor Reza sudah mempresentasikan hasil risetnya tentang mapping Green Islam debate, bagaimana memetakan debat tentang Green Islam atau Islam hijau secara bahasa, mungkin Islam yang berwawasan lingkungan melalui sosial media di Indonesia. Jadi ada beberapa research question, pertanyaan penelitian yang beliau angkat di penelitian ini. Beberapa bagaimana Green Islam didiskusikan atau dibahas di sosial media di Indonesia. Kemudian topik-topik apa yang dominan, tadi sudah beberapa topik muncul ya Bapak Ibu, dari eko pesantren, green jihad, green wakaf, dan green economy, termasuk ekoteologi masuk ke dalamnya. Kemudian who are the key actors, aktor utamanya siapa yang rajin lah ya kira-kira mempromosikan Green Islam. Kalau dari sisi organisasi tadi, dari knowledge grab yang digambarkan sama Reza itu, Muhammadiyah sangat aktif dalam mempromosikan Green Islam. Kemudian beliau juga menjelaskan mengapa memilih dua platform itu, yakni YouTube dan TikTok, dibandingkan platform sosial media yang lain seperti Instagram atau Twitter atau Facebook seperti itu. Beliau menyampaikan bahwa dari sekian banyak sosial media, YouTube dan TikTok ini lumayan lebih jarang diteliti dalam sosial media tentang topik Green Islam daripada sosial media yang lain seperti Twitter dan Facebook. Kemudian karena multimodalitas di YouTube yang memberikan waktu yang cukup panjang di videonya dari sisi visual, dari sisi audio, itu menurut beliau itu sangat rich, memberikan data yang sangat kaya, sehingga mendukung bagaimana komprehensivitas data yang dia angkat. Kemudian tadi seperti yang Bapak Ibu lihat, beberapa temuan yang diungkap melalui penelitian ini, mungkin Bapak Ibu juga sempat mencatatnya. Saya tadi izin sebentar, jadi mungkin ada yang ketinggalan gitu. Secara umum postingan-postingan Green Islam itu menurut Prof. Reza itu outreach-nya, jangkauannya itu masih dalam tahapan yang medium gitu, masih yang moderat, yang menengah begitu, belum terlalu banyak dibandingkan topik-topik yang lain begitu. Jadi kalau mungkin Bapak Ibu bisa di sosial media kita, berita yang paling sering cepat naik tuh kan berita-berita misalnya tentang politik atau perselingkuhan artis dan lain sebagainya, itu lebih sering FYP daripada topik-topik tentang Green Islam. Tadi juga diungkapkan beberapa channel ya, menarik sekali tadi dari 20 channel, dari AAGIM, kemudian JPIC, OFM, kemudian dari channel Darut Tauhid, Dan juga ternyata ada channel-channel dan sepertinya itu mahasiswa ya Bapak Ibu. Kalau Bapak Ibu lihat tadi kelas EPAI, kemudian ada juga yang dari UINRIL saya baca tadi. Meskipun agak mungkin di bawah nomor 15, tapi itu luar biasa. Masuk ke dalam 20 channel yang mempromosikan green Islam. Sebenarnya bagus sekali diungkap, dan teman-teman Bapak Ibu semua bisa bertanya baik dari sisi temuan atau dari sisi bagaimana Reza mendapatkan datanya, menganalisisnya, aplikasi apa yang dipakai. Silahkan Bapak Ibu jika ingin ada yang disampaikan, ditanyakan, atau ya sekedar berkomentar juga sangat dipersilahkan. Terima kasih. Silahkan Bapak Ibu. So Reza, I'm giving the opportunities to the audience to give their comments or questions.
Yeah.
So please everyone, silahkan.
Okay. May I?
Oh sure, Ibu Putri.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Reza. I would like to address you in Indonesian way, because we usually say the front name, the first name.
Indeed, yeah, I'm aware of it. I love it.
Pak Reza, we say. So, thank you very much. I enjoy your presentation and as well as your research, and I found that this is just the opening, that your research is just the opening, because social media is a way to predict people. Yeah, so we can predict people's behavior based on the social media activities and as well as the dynamics within the social media. And based on your observation, what do you think of Indonesian or Indonesian Muslims behavior towards environment? I mean, are we conscious with our environment to protect, to safeguard, to preserve our environment, or what do you think based on your observation on the social media? That's the first question. And the second question will be, in your opinion, how do you suggest the recent, just last week we had flood, big flood that all of us, I mean, we, the people, say that the flood is the national disaster, basically. But then the government refused to acknowledge it as a national disaster based on their point of view. So, but what do you think that of what's happening right now with the environment, with the we say there is a illegal logging and so on and so forth happening in Indonesian forests that should not have been taken a place in the first time. What do you think that based on the current discourse amongst the people in Indonesia, that we face extremely how to say natural disaster because of our hands? So that's the second question. So the first question would be, what is your take on people's behavior, on Muslim behavior in Indonesia on the environment, based on your take, yeah, based on your research, based on your observations? Because social media, as you say, that it's a reflection of people's behavior. And the second is on your opinion and comment pertaining to the current problem or current tragedy in Indonesia. So that's the second question.
All right, thank you, Ibu Putri. It's a kind of getting a bigger topic.
It's
Tough question. I appreciate that.
Professor Reza from Netherlands. So I would love to hear his opinion as well. So.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
You talk about prediction, social media and prediction. To some extent, yes, you have a very good take. That by observing, by studying what people are talking about, sharing on social media, we can tap into the potentials of the future behavior. That is true. But certainty, yeah, we just have to be careful indeed. But the prediction with some probability, we can say, yeah, this might happen. In terms of the future, behavior around Islamic or environmentalism in general through the lens of Islam, what I could also, I want to also take the moment and link it to the second one, is that institutions with resources, finance and power and knowledge, that's the moment they can set the agenda and learn what is happening on the ground, what people are thinking and talking about the environment, the second question you had, and then from other bottom-up initiative, not only within, let's say, YouTube or TikTok, but also other platforms, what is happening on Instagram or Facebook, or maybe now. And basically, yeah, set the agent or their on a social media agent, so to speak. So with the again, it was very interesting and shocking for me that I did not see NU much on Green Islam on YouTube. Maybe they have some other channels, or maybe they have their own terminology. But then, there is a possibility that the organization, doesn't matter Muhammadiyya or NU, they can learn, or other organization or even government agency, they can disseminate first their ideas, have some reflection from people. So you test your idea, basically the cheapest way. And this is what I'm going to do. And you have opened the comments and people reflect, and a little bit of, comment retrieval. You analyze the comment, even the qualitative reading the comment, you come up with some ideas. Okay, people are pros or against, or what are the reasons or rationale behind their ideas, either pros or against. And the other thing, again, learning from other platforms and beyond those organizations. Again, if YouTube or TikTok video goes viral, someone with limited resources can do such a viral content, what is happening there? Is it something really interesting happening, or is it some marketing? I mean, the way you present your content, it is appealing that so many people are watching it. So then as a organization, you can maybe learn something. I'm very much sure they have something, but then my data shows, well, then there is limited. So maybe you learn something from other content creators, and then you get inspired. You learn from bottom up. You inspire the way you disseminate your idea, and basically you have higher outreach, and basically you have more influence on situation. Again, through the lens of, for example, in this case, Green Islam, through, for example, Muhammadiyya and other, for example, organization. And related to that, again, when the natural disaster comes, for example, in this case, flooding, then you already have something already work with. And again, this is the best time for an organization that, hey, we learned something previously from these, and then we try to disseminate these. But if nothing happened, then yeah, this is execution probably issue, not from knowledge dissemination. We did whatever I could, but then yes, basically you can make the officials accountable what they've done or they have not done. the very least. So if you are an organization in power and with resources, and we created content in a very accessible, easy to understand, it does not influence, then you can learn from that why it did not make that impact. Then basically you have the revision and just trial and error and proper again ethnographic investigation and do it back and forth, and basically you make the people or the organization or the government accountable for your suggestions, basically. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it leads to another question actually. Or maybe can we see it, if I may, Pak Masud?
Please, yes.
Sure. Just go on.
Okay, just one short one.
Yep.
But can we see it like, for example, just last week as well? I mean, almost at the same time with the flooding and all the natural disaster. We heard infamous news on NU, Nahdlatul Ulama, pertaining to the access to the mining industry. So it leads to my mind that maybe the keyword should be the other side, because maybe Islam or Islamic organization, not Islam, because we believe Islam is not destroying. Islam does not destroy the environment, but the Muslims, but the people are, but the people do. But maybe the keywords, what I would like to say is maybe the keyword should be the other way around. We should see that we should accuse ourselves. Maybe the finger should be pointed to ourselves. So the keywords is whether the Muslims or the ulama or the one who are in the Muslim organizations set the fire to the forest. Set to the So the keywords should be the other way around. There is a strong interest in control and in using the ayat, or in using the Quran or using the hadith to exploit, basically. So maybe there are more news, there are more YouTube videos, TikToks on how the ulama motivates people to exploit rather than to safeguard. Maybe it just led me to this thought.
Yeah, you have a good point, actually. I mean, you just basically as you said, return the table on QIE. Okay, your interpretation of faith and green Islam is different. Not the bad and good, is basically different, and then the result also different. But again, what I can see from my data, and this is a limitation of my data, big data or social media analysis has lots of breadth. I see many videos. I mean, I can analyze it, but depth is not there. I do try to triangulate it with close reading, but then it does not always lead to the best result. And also because I had a dictionary base, so the list of words, then it is something else. Okay, I talk about these 184 keywords. Probably I come up with omit some keyword that actually did not show in my data. Basically, my result is not as strong as it should be. And it's also part of the whole ethnographic. You mingle with people, do something for example, different organization, use different terminology, and basically focus on that. For example, in this case, you said, okay, for example, QIE, for example, did that. I have no idea, and it's a big claim. I'm very careful here. But then if this has something, basically you are local, you analyze their talk, conversation, offline or online, and come up with some, let's say, keywords, and basically you mine the YouTube, TikTok, or whatever social media they're posting, or even maybe news or web pages, and then you have a relatively big database, and with a little bit of analysis here and then you can make them accountable. Hey, your take on, and again, this whole idea around green Islam, as you said, Islam is one, but the interpretation is different. Indeed, we just saw it. Green Islam is basically different on YouTube and TikTok. YouTube is just ceremonial, theological, and then when it, for example, migrates to YouTube, TikTok, it becomes a little bit commercial. So basically, a green label, you put it on your housing, and basically you can sell it higher, for example. And then basically that's it. And the whole contestation around debate, and it's basically perfectly healthy, and it's been part of this Islamic tradition from the dawn of Islamic till very now. Yeah, this is a contested topic, back and forth till have a consensus.
All right. Good. Okay. Thank you, Reza. All good, Ibu Putri?
All good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Reza.
I think, yeah, Reza. I think as an NU person myself, I also see that there are some many traditional pesantren in especially not in the cities, not modern pesantren. They do learn. The kiais also teach what is so-called green Islam or green Deen or something like that in their khutbah or in their bandungan class in pesantren, but mostly they do not post it on social media. Like my own experience in here in one of the village in Lampung, also I learned that, but there is no specific social media team in the pesantren. So maybe because NU has many traditional pesantrens, they do not have a lot, resources to disseminate their thinking or their learning practices on green Islam. Okay,
Yeah.
Bapak Ibu, I myself.
If I may, that's exactly what I was saying. Again, NU or even Muhammadiyah, the organizations with resources, they can set their social media agenda. There's so many things to talk about. Of course, politics is there, environment is there, society, culture, technology, economy, just name it. But one of which is, environment, quite contested. And hey, we as Islamic organization, these are Islamic take on environment, and this is a way we disseminate it as a coherent organization.
Yeah.
Of course, fragmentation is part of it, contestation is part of it. But what I'm trying to say, my data did not show much coherent take or reflection on green Islam from NU.
Yep.
This is what I see. Again, the other way, Muhammadiyah, all the data shows a little bit better take. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
You can basically, within the organization, build resources, you can set your agenda and disseminate and publicize it. This is what you are going to do. And doesn't matter, again, if I don't see it often on my social media analysis from Lampung, for example. At least I do know it has been set and disseminated, and other local pesantren all around the country are following the whole take on green Islam.
Yes, thank you. Oke, Bapak Ibu, silakan. Masih ada waktu untuk memberikan pertanyaan.
May I, Mr.?
Sure, Ustaz. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for this occasion, Mr. Madkur. First of all, actually, I just got this link for about 20 minutes ago. So I just rapidly joined in this meeting. Therefore, I just heard several conclusions from Mr. Madkur and the last speech from Mr. Our guest. So my question is, I just heard about pesantren on social media. So my question is, please elaborate about pesantren on social media. Thank you.
Okay. maybe one of the topic, the so-called eco pesantren, Reza, that you found from your study.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole idea again. Yeah, the boarding school that been just explicitly focusing on incorporating Islamic theology with everyday life. And what I came across with, of course, different, pesantren have different ideas, and it's perfectly healthy. And the whole idea that I came across, and the viral videos and lots of heated conversation I got, the way they go to local communities and promote those or embody those practices to basically villages. And that's very interesting that actually you see the implication of these very abstract theological ideas. Okay, Khalifa, Amana, for example, or Fariza, these are very theological debates being embodied on the ground, and these local people and even some urban communities. I came across some interesting videos that basically little urban community have their own little garden and all doing some we call it very mundane, everyday ideas about cleaning or not polluting the river, or so basic, simple, but again, it trickled down and has some influences that basically comes from these embodied aspects of observances of being Islam. And of course, the whole theological ideas around it, we do not go that way. But what I came across basically the influences that these local organizations have upon the people. And of course, in each QIE for each ecopesantron, they have a lot of, let's say, human capital. The people trust in them, and they can they have lots of influence. That's basically the whole beautiful ideas around the Indonesian Green Islam Initiative. So this is I cannot say more because it's very obvious what the ecopesantron does and just promotes basically taking care of earth.
Yeah.
Not even taking care of, basically it's there, and we simply said that, hey, this is the way it should be, and now it gets lost in the whole discussion around technology and environmental and economic gain. But then from theology, from what Prophet and from Quran says, basically there is no distinction between taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and taking care of the earth or your little garden. Basically all are related, because at the end you're Khalifa and this is Amana, and after we all die and stand up, Lord is going to just ask us, what did you do with yourself and your environment? Basically, that's it. I put it in practice.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Bustomi, Ahmad Bustomi. Yeah. So because the study, Pak Reza's study is related to the Green Islam debates on social media, and one of the topic coming up is the eco pesantren. Jadi tidak ke topik-topik lain. Yang muncul di hasil temuannya adalah bagaimana, jadi salah satu aktornya adalah pesantren, dan terminologi yang muncul salah satunya adalah eco pesantren, bagaimana pesantren ikut menyebarluaskan bagaimana kita sebagai manusia untuk menjaga bumi, kurang lebih seperti itu. Topiknya di sekitar itu, Mas Bustomi. Gimana?
Okay, thank you.
Alright, thank you. Reza, before that time is closed, I have my own question. I'm interested in how did you get the data, and then how you analyze and then presenting the eye-catching visualization to me. Yeah, for example, I'm wondering how, for example, I want to study about, my study is about English language teaching actually, and then somehow I find many mixed language, so-called translanguaging comments on Instagram, for example. I'm wondering about the data, let's say data reliability, like sometimes the one who posts is actually maybe robot or maybe fake account. So for example, like that. Did you like filter the content from the TikTok, for example, from your study, and how did you like decide, oh, this one not eligible, this one is okay, this one not?
Well, in terms of data collection, basically, it's a computational social science and humanities. It's been around, from early 2000s. It started with, basically some text analysis. Let's say you have some newspaper articles, and the whole basic idea was around simply just tokenizing the sentence into the words and removing some irrelevant words. We could stop words, for example, in English language, the, at, in, be, these kind of irrelevant words, but then some other words are more meaningful. And basically simple counting, okay, this, the speech that this professor, for example, this QIE delivers, we have 300 times Islam, we have 200 times politics, and therefore Islam and politics are the majority. So this is the most basic one. And of course, with the advancement of technology and some more advanced algorithms, you basically can work around work with much more complex data. One of these, for example, I did here basically, topic modeling, basically the probabilistic approach that just goes through the occurrence of certain words in your database, and based on the co-occurrence of certain words together, basically, so, okay, this topic is relevant within these documents and so on and so forth, and then you can label it, for example. The other one is sentiment analysis. Basically, you have through machine learning, neural networks, deep learning, basically the algorithm learns that this sentence has a positive connotation, negative or neutral, for example, and so on and so forth. In terms of the multiple languages, yes, this is the annoying part of social media. That's why, for example, especially for YouTube, you can basically have the transcription of the video. That's why I explicitly went for Bahasa Indonesia languages. I had Spanish, interestingly. I had Dutch, I had English, I had French, German, you just name it. But then, of course, because you set your geography Indonesia, you say, okay, all videos that are generated and viewed in Indonesian context, give it to me, and then basically just filter it, and I want those original language to be in Bahasa Indonesia. And basically Google is just has done a very good job of transcribing basically any video with voice on YouTube is automatically transcribed on different languages. Basically you can retrieve it. And then for me, English is that's also part of, we can go into the idea on data colonialism and this idea that, okay, English is the language of, AI and technology, and basically just, imposing some threat to other local languages and so. But again, anyhow, I acknowledge that, but again, I say, by focusing on one language that many of social media, so many of analysis and algorithm are built upon it, aka English, you basically work around that. However, for the comments, yes, this is something else. What you can do, if you, for example, you have, let's say, this, again, for example, one of his most famous YouTube videos get hundreds of comments, and you want to know what people been talking about his video. Basically, you retrieve the comments, and then the simplest one is basically finding those comments with a lexicon. Basically, it's obvious sometimes if the post is by human generated or bot generated. So the words are simpler, more easy to understand. The other word is basically lengthier, and the comments even more, example, lengthier, for example. But again, it can't flag it. You give the algorithm that you write basically a flag. Okay, basically highlight these suspicious comments, and then you simply review it. And of course, there are some models, pre-trained models. You can basically use them that just basically with relatively high accuracy that can flag and remove.
Yeah.
The other thing is basically if with multiple languages, the other one, yeah, a little bit, unless you have multilingual models that you either train yourself or pre-train, you can use it on internet.
Mm-hmm.
You can basically translate everything in the language, everything Bahasa Indonesia, for example, everything Dutch or everything English. So basically the problem solved. Of course, the whole lost in translation, some local nuances and connotation and maybe sarcasms are actually lost. We acknowledge it. Or unless you're basically well-versed. For example, yeah, in this case, I had 184 terminology, both English and Bahasa Indonesia. But then if you're, for example, local and you're very well-versed, you basically do not need the Indonesian part, for example. The English part, the taxonomy anymore, is basically focused on Bahasa. In terms of getting back, the data collection, YouTube is, again, Google is the easiest one, super easy. And they have a very interesting and easy to understand interface with data collection. They have API for almost anything. For Google Maps, I work with. Hopefully, if you have another session, inshallah, summer next year, I'm working, for example, right now on mosques on Amsterdam, and fascinating stuff I discovered. So basically, they have API for that. You can basically collect data. For YouTube, is the easiest one. Basically, they have API for it and a little bit of Python or R or any other programming languages, and you have the text and the transcript. Or if you want to, for example, have a keyword, as I did here, for example, any video with keyword of one of those Green Islam keywords, or let's say again, I have his channel, and I basically say, okay, all the videos from Agim YouTube videos, fetch it for me. And then basically, okay, I want to know about ideas of Agim and trajectory of his ideas. Let's say he has three, I don't know how many he has. He's very prolific. And from, let's say, 2012 up until very now, let's say 3,000 videos, for example, he has. What topic he has focused on, what are the most viewed one or most contested videos, and basically you can focus on that if you're interested in YouTube, for example, or if you want to go into the comments, another one. Basically YouTube, Google gives you the idea. For TikTok, the same. Basically you can apply for TikTok Research API, and basically it gives you access to public content. So let's say any keyword, any user, or even followers. For example, you have 3, 4, or 5 KIE, and the ustads, for example, on YouTube, and sorry, TikTok, and basically you retrieve the followers, and then you map the followers of these ustads and basically find, okay, which two, let's say, ustads have much more in common in terms of followers, for example, or the topics they share, and so on. So
yeah, thank you. I'm also just want to confirm the, like, to me this is kind of new research method. Is in your study, in this study, is the name, the type of research is called like ethnography or digital ethnography, or what is it?
Yeah, in the broadest perspective is, again, if it's purely computational, you don't do any close reading, is basically computational social sciences / computational humanities. But again, if you hesitate a little bit, you pause, you focus on it, a little bit close reading to triangulate, to validate, and because again, algorithms, again, this is a thing with big data. It has lots of breadth. You see, again, it gets thousands of videos. For example, for my LIDAR project, I had 65 million Twitter tweets, for example. But then I can never read 65 million tweets.
Yeah.
Yes, impossible. But then I can, for example, focus on, let's say, 50 very highly liked and highly commented tweets that are around intersection of, let's say, Islam and artificial intelligence. Oh, that's very interesting. And then I can focus on those, and then becomes digital ethnography. Then I can basically zoom in, close reading, what are people actually working on, talking about, who are those people? And then I click on the, for example, this account, oh, this person actually talk about this and this and this, and then I can move back to my big data and, let's say, retrieve his or her entire timeline on, let's say, Twitter, and then, okay, this person has been basically active from 2009 up until now, and basically artificial intelligence and faith, he's been working actually from very early stages. So he's actually quite interesting person to focus. And then if you have resources, for example, in Indonesian context, you can basically have an interview with this person. Then goes back and forth between computational methods and ethnographic methods. That basically becomes a very interesting, rich and accurate take on mixed methodology. So that basically have your digital ethnography, by switching back and forth between offline and online.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing knowledge. Oke, Bapak Ibu, masih ada 5 menit, silahkan. We still have 5 minutes. Ada lagi yang mau ditanyakan?
Maybe next time, just for a food for thought, maybe next time Pak Reza could be invited again to show us how to do social network analysis.
Yeah.
Well, again, inshallah, if I'm still alive next week, I'm going to. I am actually next week. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into big data analysis, because now, let's say we have only 600 videos, but then next week I talk about actually artificial intelligence and Islam on Singapore social media, Singapore newspaper, and there I have 620,000 newspaper articles. So this is much deeper into the whole the big data analysis and digital ethnography. So if you're around next week, and I'm still alive, inshallah, we're gonna just have an interesting conversation.
So we pray that you will be alive.
Yeah. Wow, we cannot wait. That will be interesting. Baik, Bapak Ibu, sepertinya cukup untuk pertemuan sore hari ini. Pertemuan seri berikutnya dengan Reza, dengan Pak Reza akan sangat menarik dengan data yang lebih besar. Mungkin kesimpulan pada sore hari ini, data sosial media seperti yang disampaikan Pak Reza tadi dapat diimplementasikan ke berbagai topik, tidak hanya ke Green Islam, tapi ketika teman-teman punya topik-topik lain seperti hukum, law, ekonomi, dan lain-lain, topik-topik yang lain, itu sangat bisa diterapkan penelitian seperti ini. Kemudian seperti saya mendapatkan wawasan yang sangat baru, jadi mungkin kita akan lebih banyak membaca tentang digital ethnography, computational humanities, dan lain-lain yang mungkin akan sangat membantu mendukung jenis studi sosial media seperti ini. Baik, Bapak Ibu, thank you Pak Reza, terima kasih Pak Reza, thank you very much. Prof. Suherdi dan Bapak Ibu tim dari Pascasarjana dan para hadirin peserta pada sore hari ini, thank you very much. Saya Ahmad Madkur, moderator pada sore hari ini. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan, saya akhiri. Mari kita tutup dengan hamdalah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Baik, saya akhiri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Reza. See you next meeting.
See you next meeting. Yep.
Awesome. Have a great day.